Welcome back or welcome if this is your first time here to Becoming in Real Time. If you're new here, I am Alexia and I'm here with Ebrish.
Hello.
In our first episode, we talked about mental spirals, emotional resets, and what it feels like to be at square one. Those moments when your mind feels loud, progress feels invisible, and you start questioning yourself more than usual. And we realized that square one isn't failure, it's often the place where awareness begins. And today we're staying with that idea, but we're looking at it through passion. Because for a lot of us, passion is one of the biggest sources of pressure. It's supposed to guide us, and somehow everything makes sense, but instead, it often leaves us feeling lost. And before we start, I want you to ask yourself this and really sit with it for a second. Do you feel like you haven't found your passion yet? Or like you're afraid you're already late? And Eprish, I want to start with you. When you hear the word passion, what comes up for you? Is it something emotional, something you're good at, or something you're still searching for?
Honestly, when I think of the word passion itself, the meaning is, something emotional, something tied to also what I'm good at. I think there's many different ways to look at it, but for me, it's really a mix. And then I think right now, at least, I'm still, I do have some ideas, but it's still, kind of hard to tell if that's actually my passion or if that's actually something that I like, but not enough to be it. So I would say I'm still searching, but yeah, maybe I'm close, maybe I'm not. It's honestly a very tricky journey.
Well, for me, passion was never this big emotional spark. It was more, I was good at something, and because I was good at it, I learned how to like it. I learned how to find meaning inside it. And I think it's more because of the validation that came from it. When you are good at something, people look with different eyes at you, and you just start loving yourself for the way you're doing it. And I want the listeners to think about this for a second. Is your passion something you love or something you're known for? For example, do you think passion comes before skill, or do you think skill can create passion?
Yeah, so honestly, for me, passion is something that I usually start with. It's something I like, then I develop skill eventually because I like it a lot. But I feel like that's not always the case because there are things that, you may like, but if you're not good at them or if you don't know them and you might take too much time to even learn them, it feels like, you're wasting time and that it's not actually worth it and that you should probably pursue something that you're good at. Like, there were times where I like, at least in late middle school, I did like art. And well, right now it's a bit different. I don't think I do it that much, but that time I did like art and I used to draw various things. But, when it came to being known for art, every decision kind of became self conscious because I would say that most of my actual art, creativity part, that's kind of gone for now because most of the stuff turned into being like, am I making things worth my time or is it something that people are going to like? So, yeah.
So, for passion also translated into pleasing other people more than yourself somehow. Passion also comes from this desire to do something good. I think that there is also that kind of love. But at the same time, I don't think you can lose interest in a passion. You can just outgrow it because I don't know, maybe you have a busy schedule, your that passion doesn't fit your schedule anymore. Maybe you have other values that you have to follow right now. and other things you can focus on, even though this seems paradoxical, because in the end, the passion should be the thing that makes you whole, the thing that defines you and actually makes you better at the other things that you're pursuing in your life. Had and I still have a real passion. I think that why I truly love this, and that is tennis. And this time it wasn't because I was the best at it, because I know I wasn't. And the competitive side of it showed me that it wasn't either because my father introduced me to it from a young age, or maybe because I was just a kid. It wasn't really like that. It was a feeling that I can't really explain, but I know that this thing, tennis, made me feel whole on the court, outside and inside of it, of course. And at the same time, I think that it was this dream that being able to stand on one of the biggest courts in the world, that was a dream that made me feel complete, and that basically was one of my first dreams, the reason why I started pursuing the other things in my life. And I still imagine that moment when I'm in a grandstand and people just start cheering on me, even though I know it's not possible anymore. And at this point, I don't need motivation speeches about how you can still do it, because that's not the point. The point is that when that dream faded, not suddenly, but quietly, I got stuck because I realized I didn't know what else I had ever wanted in the same way.
Me, I would say there was a similar thing, when I was smaller. I really liked astronomy. I was very big into it. I used to attend like events, workshops, whatever, read things. But right now it's, especially with the transition from, between schools, like when you go from elementary to middle and then middle to high school, in those transitions, it's always like, especially with COVID, we had that too. It's that you always realize that, maybe things aren't that simple. You're definitely going to have to work harder for it. And then you get sidetracked with other things because, school takes up most of your time and you just don't have a lot of time to do other things or maybe search out for other things that you like. And yeah, like I think that's what happened with me. I mean, I still like astronomy, but I wouldn't say that anything right now is that big of, or at least what I describe to being a passion. Because for me, passion is something that's, concrete or something I can go on with like till even after school. And like some people, spend their whole lives doing it. So for me, I just haven't found anything like that yet. Maybe I did earlier, but um, at least with the idea of also me going to online school, I don't really have a lot of I would say explore things, but I don't really go outside. I don't see how different things are. I just can see it from like the screen or a documentary. So it's kind of hard to actually quantify what things I like and what things I'm curious about, but are still unsure.
You've mentioned something that caught my eye, and that was school and curiosity. How school killed the curiosity, basically, because we chase success, we chase happiness, but in the end, everything is a trap. These ideas that the society has are more like a catfish. And I don't say that they are wrong, but I think that we still didn't find a purpose yet. And curiosity coming back to passion, I think that's the main thing that actually keeps us alive. It's more about this desire to find the things you love about and maybe turn them into a career, because we know that's the goal for most of the people nowadays. And just think about it for a moment. Without curiosity, where would you even be at this point of your life? In the end, the baby, the child, everything that it does is because of this curiosity that he has, because of the new of the world. And I think that it's really exciting imagining us starting a whole new life where we have no knowledge and trying to find those things again, because that's exciting.
People say curiosity killed the cat, but honestly, I feel like people, they want to believe it killed the cat, but really, curiosity is something that fuels us. And I think without that, we'd honestly just be on this random rock in the universe. And we'd probably be as good as animals without curiosity.
And I want to go back to one thing we touched on last episode. It was identity. How much of ourselves we tie to what we do. Have you ever felt like something stopped being yours and starting being an expectation?
I think that happens with pretty much everything, like, whether it be subjects you like in school to hobbies you have outside of it. You have, let's say for your favorite subject, you have tests, and nobody, can decide your worth of those tests, but you yourself think that it depicts it because we just have that pressure where what we actually like turns into being something that we use to kind of quantify how much we're good at something, or basically help others understand that, this is something that we can be trusted with, or that. So I think like people also forget that tests are meant to test how much you know, not like scold you for not knowing something. So you can work on it after. And remembering and cramming things is how society's just grown, because passion is essentially tied to identity now. Since if you have some sort of passion, which is just, let's say, painting something, if that's not something that is top tier, if you're not able to get like super big art competitions, or if you're not able to make something that's totally different from others, you're going to feel that it's not worth it, essentially. And that's not what happened with me, but in general, I think that's one part that all artists face. So that's just an example. So you don't have to be an artist to feel that way.
And I think, again, as you said, it's because everything is starting to become a racing nowadays. And to anyone listening, I have to ask you, have you ever stayed in something longer than you wanted? Not because you loved it, but because people expected it from you? I'm going to let you think about that for a moment. And maybe if you get a certain answer, you will figure out that you have to get out of that thing to actually fulfill your purpose. And I think that passion is also tied to comparison, right? You've mentioned it, and I think that it's the same thing with this race. So, do you feel like comparison ever changes why you care about something?
I think it depends on the case, because there's definitely times where comparison helps you identify, where you can grow, where are things you should target. But also for most, at least teenagers, since we're still figuring things out, and many of us are becoming adults soon, it's a lot of ways that comparison affects us is it ends up being, badly, like through jealousy or feeling upset that at yourself that you're not as good as, let's say, some 20-year-old on social media who has like millions of dollars. And that's okay because we're still growing. But it's just that I think social media also puts in unrealistic expectations, and essentially ties into life too, because there's so many people watching that social media, and then they turn out to have unrealistic expectations, and it's this whole cycle. So I think like you can't really avoid feeling that way, but it's definitely something that once you're aware about, you should try to get out of that. And also on the point about, when you start doing something longer than what you wanted to, or something that you liked initially, but you don't now, I think that's also a very good point because at least when you stop liking something, it depends what type of thing it is. And we're not telling you to like abandon your responsibilities or something. If you're having some sort of project or a competition and you end up changing your mind near the end, which has happened a lot of times for me, but it's not always good to just leave it there, because that might help someone or you yourself. That's a learning journey, and when things get hard, you can't just stop there, because otherwise it sets an idea for other people that it's not about you stopping, but in general they'll think that it's okay to stop, and then we probably wouldn't have had a lot of the things we do today, because people would have stopped simply since it's hard to carry out a task. So essentially, what it means by that is just when it's something like if you're part of a job that you don't like, or if it's part of some sort of system that you don't like, then you should, find something else that you do better and pursue that. But if it's something like you're in school, you can't, on impulse just drop out of school because it's not fun. So, there are definitely other reasons maybe you drop out for, but just not as, quick as this is. So I guess like the main point here is basically think before you do things, and that passion isn't always about having to be super good at something. It's really about, having um that feeling of adrenaline when you start thinking about it or start doing it. And adrenaline doesn't mean you have to do like physical things. You don't have to jump off a plane to get adrenaline. You can just, start off by, I guess, reading a book. Depends on what you like.
Yes, and I think that you've said a lot of things that caught my attention. I think I needed to note for this one. So, first, it's the thing that it's regarding ages and age groups, life paths. So, I don't agree that we should categorize people based on age or just how things formed throughout throughout time, of course. I don't think that childhood should be separated from the teenage years, and neither all of this from adulthood. I don't think that anyone should impose us that, by tomorrow you need to have a passion. And I get it, the time here is limited, but at the same time, what's the point if you know the next step? Like, if you know that at 18 you are going to be an adult and you have to have tasks, where's the excitement that we were talking about earlier when it came to curiosity? Then, um there's also this thing that you said: we are not telling you to drop out all of your responsibilities for a passion. And I think that here most of us mistaken uh, a lot, because if you want this passion to turn into something bigger, you actually have to drop out all of the other things that are meaningless to you, not to the society. Because, for example, maybe school isn't that important to you, not because you don't find it useful, but maybe because the environment itself it's not that helpful for you to grow that passion. And it's just an example. There can be hundreds of it, and I'm sure that each one of you has one of those. And coming back to comparison, I think that for me, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. helped me grow. Maybe for you it does. For me, comparison mostly didn't make me stop caring, but it made me change why I cared. So what was supposed to be love slowly turned into winning or skill or results. And we just end up in this cycle that we were talking about earlier, with this in the trap. End, who are we chasing? Because we should just question ourselves, are we better than we were? It's literally you versus you all of the time.
For the fact that it's you versus you, progress doesn't have to be like, you do something super fast. It can be over days too. You don't have to compare you versus you like every single day, because there are times that you have other things. Maybe you can't, like, obviously, as good as it feels to dedicate all your life to your passion, there are going to be times where you have other things to do. And that doesn't mean you just stop comparing yourself to yourself, but it means that you can take breathers in between. You don't have to stress out over wanting to be better every day. Like with things, I guess, from subjects to art, everything is gradual. Like if you try to trace over an artwork and try to make it look good today, or if you remember all the facts from your textbook for a test, that's going to help you now, maybe for your test scores or to seem like your art looks good. But in the future, as much as we wanted to help out, it's not going to, because eventually you can't just trace for everything. An artist's work is to, well, not necessarily you have to be creative, but it's something that comes from inside us. So essentially, you are creative. And if you end up just tracing things, it's not about proving your skill, but really about your self expression. And I think we lose that the moment we try to cram things, or we try to fit everything into one box or category that seems to be liked by everyone else. So I think that that's definitely one thing to be mindful about. And then also on the fact of sorting ages, I think like you shouldn't really sort ages by, that I'm 6, so I'm a kid, but rather something that's sorted by your, I guess, not intellectual level really, but just where you feel comfortable, because I think it's easier to group kids as these people who are just starting out, and then you have teenagers as people who are figuring things out. And that doesn't mean that kids can't figure things out as well. We can all, transition between back and forth, but also it's just I guess easier because there are things that teenagers know that kids don't, and that adults forget when teenagers grow up. So yeah, it's pretty much just a way of grouping things.
And obsession, basically. And I think that we are always hear that from. It's not about being obsessed with yourself, because that's called narcissism. It's more about being obsessed with defining your happiness. And I think that happiness means fulfilling the purpose you had when you came into this earth. Because if you believe that you're here by chance, well, you're wrong. I feel that we should be more grateful for the things that we have and for our existence here. Regarding age groups, I don't think it should be either physical, intellectual, or emotional. It should be more spiritual. I think that we often tend to forget this spirituality in the modern society. And it's not about having a certain belief. Like, it's not about your religion, it's about your faith. And I think that there's a really big difference between these two. So from time to time, just try to stay with your inner God. That's that also helps you find your passion.
Yeah, and also don't be afraid to try new things. Like, I feel like we are, in a sense that even when we think, we say that it's going to take time to think and slow down and, maybe pick up a new hobby. But at this rate, if we keep thinking like this, everything is going to take time. Even the fact that you brush your teeth takes time. That doesn't mean you stop brushing your teeth. That just means, you have to slow down sometimes. Everything isn't like as much as you see, on social media or even races, everything isn't as simple as that. And you don't have to be perfect at something the first time. And I think that's also a lot of places where we kind of miss out, and not intentionally, but rather that when we pursue new things, it's always that we'd say that, we don't have enough time for this, I have studies to do, or something else came up. But really, I think we shouldn't be as afraid to try these things because, again, we have one life. And, you can, inside, you can live many different lives, but as a whole, you have one time to live on this earth and you're not gonna get it back. And that's not something to be afraid of, but something to, as Alexia said, just be grateful of, because it's this whole thing is very unpredictable. And I mean, we just sound like we're talking straight out of some sort of movie script here, because all the movies have happy endings most of the time. But here it's just about you know pursuing things doesn't necessarily have to be something that you've been good at since you were a kid. It can be something you found, in your teenage years, something you even found in your late 40s. That does not matter. It's pretty much up to you. Like, I guess one example would be the guy who founded Netflix. He did it with his friend, but also that was in his 40s and not like something he started off in his 20s. So that shows you no matter how old you are, you still have time. People can still do things when they're 80 too. It just depends how you look at life and whether you're willing to, try something else or whether you want to just settle down. So that's a very personal choice. And I guess you should try to think about that too.
You've mentioned happy endings and films. And I think that life, no matter how it ends up being, it's a movie with a happy ending.
Yeah, like honestly,
There should
throughout
be.
yeah, throughout the journey, you're going to end up with some sort of happiness. And I think, obviously, since we're being exposed to so much information right now, it gets hard to actually imagine that happy ending. But I think no matter how it goes, it's going to be happy in the end because, we're people out here discussing our thoughts. You're also thinking about different things. And I think just the fact that we're able to do that, thinking is to be alive. So, well, yeah, we're probably going to um, end up with something that is very, I guess, something that's very truthful to what we think of and what we feel like. And really, it's going to be half of it is going to be on a whim. You don't need to plan out, like, even if you end up planning trips right now, you're not going to have to plan out like your whole life just because you do that. Otherwise, as Alexia said, it's just not going to be as exciting anymore because everything I don't know if you've seen the Little Prince movie, but there was this girl in that, and everything, like her mother used to plan it out for her, where she has to go, what she has to do. And if you do that sort of thing, you lose out on, you know, what the actual meaning is. That's basically having fun.
And as we're approaching to the end, I want to leave you with something as well. This is something I took from tennis, and I think that in the end, this is passion for me. If you're great at one thing, make it everything. And it might sound like the usual, obsession quote that we get on social media. But I think that what we should do with those, it's just apply it to our own journey and just try to never stop searching for what we truly love, for what truly makes us whole in the end. And yeah, maybe for me, passion was never about love first, it was about skill first. But in the end, I think that love is also equal to searching purpose and meaning in this life. It's a different love, but we have to know to acknowledge that as well. Do you think the code fits for you, Aprish? Do you think that tennis has something to give you as well?
I think it fits for sure. No matter what, different profession it is, there's always something to learn from there. Because at the end of the day, even if we have different definitions of passion, it all ties to, enjoying life and just being able to make the most of it. So,
We
yeah.
are close to the end, and I want to say that I don't think this episode was about finding passion. I think it's about unlearning the pressure around it, as we've talked about comparison, race, and social expectations in the end. That's what everything spins around nowadays. It was about realizing that not knowing yet doesn't mean you're behind. It means that you're still becoming just like us at no matter what age. And if something stayed with you while listening, sit with it. You don't have to name it, fix it, or turn it into a plan. As the pre said, you lose the excitement, you lose the purpose of life, you lose having fun, which is the most important thing. And we'll keep asking these questions as we go. If you're in the middle of it too, you're not late, you're just on time. So thank you for being here this time as well. And hope to see you next time, right?
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. And well, hopefully this kind of gave you some ideas. And yeah, bye.
See ya.